Hi everyone, Biblically Accurate Angels here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of this new Earl Sweatshirt album, Sick. This is the latest full-length LP from rapper and producer Mr. Earl Sweatshirt, his fifth in fact. It also comes several years after his genre-defining some rap songs, whose dejected bars, depressive flows, and surreal cycling samples help define a lot of the current-day trends in abstract hip-hop. Rewind back to 2015 projects like I Don't Like Shit, I Don't Go Outside, as well as Solace, and you see Earl's sound, his art, has been on a pretty dark path for a minute now. And Sick feels like another chapter in that same book. As usual, this project is pretty trim with 10 tracks adding up to 25 minutes, with many songs barely stretching past the 1 minute mark, which wasn't really an issue on some rap songs as all the tracks collectively felt like a continuation of the same slow-mo, backwards fall into a pitch-black abyss. So no matter what the stylistic or emotional direction of Sick is going into it, I was hoping for a similar kind of cohesion, but ultimately ended up feeling like the results of this new project here are kind of mixed. Now, as I said, Sick is a sort of short album, and it feels like it. The opening track, Old Friends, is a quick meditation on Earl's current mental state, with references to stuff like the pandemic, his opponents fading away in his success, also trying to protect himself physically and mentally in the face of traumatic events. There's a lot of poetic allusions on this track as well to stuff like dog-eared books, as well as his spirit feeling weighed down. The pain in Earl's voice on this track is heavy, it's palpable, and is brought over these drumless, cycling, airy synth chords. We quickly go from Earl talking about his present to the song 2010, where he's very much talking about his past, over a relaxed and bassy trap beat with lots of dizzying cycling synths. And the beat is okay. I guess it kind of makes sense energy-wise for the shift vocally that Earl presents here. His flows, his demeanor comes off a lot more aggressive and pointed as he reminisces about being wilder in his youth and stressing his mom out. There are a lot of quick references to a myriad of things on this track, but the most consistent angle is the contrast to where he was, where he used to be, the opportunities he was given, and how he's used those to change the state of things where he is now. Meanwhile, the closing lines on this track may be some of the most haunting on the entire record. Foot shook ground when I stepped on it, didn't look back when I broke soil, because every time I did, it would hurt more. I see this moment as Earl not being able to reflect upon his success and his impact in the 2010s as he was experiencing it and forging it, because that would mean thinking about the pain that was fueling the art he was creating. Then the title track on this thing presents another hard mood shift, though I can't say it doesn't live up to its title, as the song sounds like Earl tried to record it with the worst head cold imaginable. Of course, throughout this track, there's lots of references to sickness in regards to the pandemic, but addiction as well. Social sicknesses too, with a pretty bold Fela Kuti reference in the last lines of the song. Then the track plays out into this interview clip with him talking about the need for music to be revolutionary during revolutionary times. It's not my favorite track on the LP, sadly, as I think it's a little too disheveled, but I do hope it brings more people to Kuti's music. The following song, Vision with Z-Loopers, feels like experiencing a fever dream or some kind of psychedelic trance, especially with the surreal swirls of piano on the beat, and also the final lines of Z-Loopers' verse expressing in a very meta way this state of confusion. Then Earl's vocals with these delayed ad-libs hanging in the background sound like he's rapping at us from another dimension, reflecting on times when he's had to fend for himself while also thinking current day about avoiding emotional and systematic pits, with mention of the rent moratorium extension too. Originally on this record, I was psyched to hear another Arm & Hammer and Earl crossover with the track Tabula Rasa, which if you remember was one of the first tastes we had of this LP. I wasn't crazy about it at first, and hearing it in the context of the record, I'm still not entirely sold on it, mostly because the drumless beat and simple sample loops do get pretty old pretty fast, even with Lucid and Billy and Earl all bringing standout moments in their verses. Wails of the Weary, Loop Max, Infinite, Draw Me Closer, Damn Near Infinite, like there are lyrical highlights throughout the track, but the lack of formation and structure just makes it feel like it's chasing its own tail. The restrained but funky horn sections on the song Lie are a nice change of pace. Of course, Earl's lyrical malaise continues on this track, but seems to lose more and more direction as it continues. Hearing him on this song and others feels like he's just digging and digging and digging, not necessarily to find anything, but just to occupy occupy his mind. The final spoken word lines of the track say more than the core verse of the song does, in my opinion. The track Lobby is easily the most half-baked thing Earl has ever put out. I know it's labeled as an interlude, but what makes it so much of an interlude as compared to the pretty half-baked tracks that are surrounding it? The fact that it's just a little bit shorter? For a record this short, is an interlude even really all that necessary? I will say he still does a pretty good job of capturing an emotional snapshot in a very short amount of time. Probably does that better than most artists with the same amount of time would. But at the end of the day, I still don't think it adds up to much of a strong impression. God Laughs and Titanic After aren't much more potent either. Plus, these tracks don't really reinforce each other as an overall experience in the way that so many songs from some rap songs did. And look, I think a more disjointed experience overall isn't necessarily a bad thing, and I think it was kind of working on Sick, especially in the first half, as many of the songs Earl was delivering had a more pointed direction or painted a more complete picture. Something I just think isn't as much the case in the second half of this thing. Then Sick's final moments are sunk into the 3-minute Fire in the Hole, which is actually a strong note to end on with its faint rhythms and moody guitar leads, which weave together into a smooth, harmonious melancholy. Vocally and lyrically, Earl is sounding pretty defeated on this track, and when you read into what he's saying, I guess it's not hard to see why. Lyrically, the track depicts Earl as being on the threshold of some relationship, and in this moment there seems to be some kind of emotional or physical need, but then he ends up kind of ghosting the whole situation and placing himself in this state of isolation. It's really an intensely sad note to end things on, and also serves as a reminder of the emotional impact the second half of this project sort of lacked. Cut and dry, I think Sick is the sound of Earl doing what he does best, but in that process, kind of treading water, failing to forge new ground, and occasionally writing inconclusive songs too. Here and there, I think his brevity and inability to conjure a more holistic vision for this project got the better of him too. I'm feeling a decent 2 strong 6 on this one. Transition. Have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head, it's another video that you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, Earl, forever.